Welcome to Discerning News, where we bring you current stories from a bigger picture perspective. The purpose is to inspire clarity and enthusiasm for your unique journey.
Welcome to Discerning News, where we offer spiritual perspectives on the latest news stories of the day. Hello, Teresa, and
Tom.
hello, Tiger.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Teresa.
The team.
Great to be around the table with you again today. The first story that we're going to start out with is a story about a knife ban in Australia. Earlier this week, Monday in Australia, which is Sunday our time, there was a 13-year-old that took a knife in a Coles supermarket. Coles is a supermarket chain in Australia. And he attacked an employee, and I guess was stabbed, and a 63-year-old woman. The fellow, if I didn't mention this earlier, he was only 13 years old. And as a consequence, Coles is no longer going to sell knives, kitchen knives, in their stores. And however, one of their major competitors, Woolworths, which has a big chain in Australia, is going to go ahead and sell them. And one of the reasons is this struck my attention was because they already had some legislation, which I guess keeps minors from buying, kitchen knives, those sharp types of knives. And as they complied lately, as they decide that they don't want to sell these knives, they're saying that they're doing this out of an abundance of caution and that everybody should be safe. And however, my first impression on this whole story is that it's a legal issue. And it's kind of one of those CYA situations where, you're going to, you don't want to be sued. So now they're not going to sell knives. And I guess the premier, which is like the governor in Queensland, is saying that, we got more work to do. We're going to look at more legislation. And so now we're going to create some more laws to protect people, is the idea, right? However, there are already laws, and now they're talking about tightening any loopholes of these laws. So for a person of my maturity and being around for several decades this lifetime, I find this extraordinary that from now on, they aren't going to sell kitchen knives in a Kohl's shop. And I guess the final point I wanted to make is no one's mentioned anything about the mental health of this 13-year-old, or there's no talk about getting the 13-year-old some help. So I'm going to pass that story on to my colleague over here, Tiger, and to hear your thoughts from the spiritual perspective.
Thanks, Tom. This is a very interesting story, and I'm kind of along the lines of what you're bringing up. What strikes me are several things. First of all is the young man. That's immediately where I went when I heard about this. I wasn't thinking about the knives. I wasn't thinking about the Coles. I wasn't thinking about the legislation. I was thinking about the young man. And that's where I went to. And part of that has to do with going after something that is the root, right? This is what part of this story is for me spiritually, is what is the root of things. And Australia is such a beautiful place. It is, if you haven't gone, it is such a beautiful place to be. And the place itself is huge. It's like the size of America. And a tremendous amount of resources, good people. But there is this tendency there to want to legislate things so that things are right. And for me, it's the heart of the matter is never something outside of myself. It's always my responsibility. And so I'm either going to work from that or I'm going to work from something outside of myself. And that just kind of comes right back to what my first loyalty is and my responsibility to that loyalty. My loyalty needs to be to myself and what I've come to do. And then the next loyalty is my unit, the people around me. And then the next unit after that, of course, is going to be to the bigger picture and to the larger community and my flag and all that kind of stuff. So if I forget that, then pretty soon, if I abdicate my responsibility, then what's going to happen is something from the outside is going to move in to be responsible for me. That's what it comes down to. So the more I'm responsible for myself, the more I set a tone, I set an aura of things. It's like a bright light that shines out, and that buffers me from the outside pressures and outside ideas. If I'm not doing that, if I'm not taking care of myself, making sure that I'm playing the game of life, that I'm being respectful to myself and to people and the environment, if I'm not doing that, then what's going to happen is I'll retract in, and then by definition, things will push in, right? And I hate to say it this way, but it is similar to the laws of the jungle, in that if I don't keep my area clear, right, and clean, pretty soon the jungle will start to move in on that area. It's just nature, right? It's energy. And so my first concern was about this young man and what's going on there, but it's putting the focus on something outside sets a tone to have the same problem again. And then you have to put more controls because it's going to happen worse. And then it's going to happen again. So the more controls on the outside makes it worse when something else happens. When we put the control on the inside, then what happens is there's more self-respect, there's more support and backing, and solutions come to the community because it's happening by the individual out. So my wrap up of this whole thing has to do with that loyalty and responsibility, and making sure that the unit is solid. So to back and support this young man or this young person and their family, right? That's where really the attention needs to be, in my opinion. Because that's how I want to live my life. I want to give people opportunity to learn and grow. I don't want things from the outside dictating to anyone that I'm working with how they should do things. Obviously, you have a situation where they're not respecting the environment. You got to do something about that. There's the facts. But there are ways to do it. And this is my final thing. There are ways to work with people and honor and respect them in a way that it doesn't take away other people's opportunity. And that would be my final thing, is if I can work with my brothers and sisters in a way where I can have my learning lesson, and if something happens, I have to work with that and correct that, but it doesn't take away from everyone else. That is the golden guideline for me. So I say wrap up would be just loyalty and responsibility for myself and what I've come to do, and back people at that level. How can I help you help yourself? That's my wrap up.
Yeah, for myself, the key word that came up when I was hearing this story, and of course, I also feel for the child, because he is still a child, and also, the parents that goes on, and what's the situation at home, what's the things that occurred that this kid is obviously having some issues with. But then also the other perspective and on a bigger picture is how a situation then affects the many. Okay, it goes from the micro to the macro. So, and this happens in a lot of places, that one incident will happen and then everyone has to pay the price, so to speak. And so that lack of freedom and pulling back on those areas where other people are now affected. So now you go to Coles, and maybe that's the only store you have in your small town in Australia, because like Tiger said, we've been to Australia too, and it's a beautiful place. And a lot of places, there's only maybe one supermarket. So the Kohl's is there, and it's another hour to another place, and there's no knives. So it's really affecting now a lot more people than just unfortunately, the lady that, got stabbed in that store. So this really, on a bigger picture perspective, is something that really needs to be, I think, addressed because, I mean, Australia is different than a lot of places. It's more socialism. It's a different government system. And not to say it wouldn't happen here in America, because with, depending upon who's in the government and what's going on in that area, that something like that could also occur here too, because people are to the point where they don't look at how can we actually support what happened, and how can we, find out what, like Tiger said, the root cause of what's gone on, besides pulling all the knives off the shelves. And so that lack of freedom, that lack of, okay, well, now we're all going to pay a price because there's something wrong with this young child. There's something that's not right. There's something that needs to be addressed. But instead, we're going to go to, let's just pull everything off and now everyone suffers. So for myself, it feels like in that understanding, as we're all a soul and we're all really, here to do what we're, here to do, and get support when we need it. And this child needs support. So that's what I want to share about it today, really is, that lack of, what's the, like Tiger's saying, what's the root cause, and how can we all work with that versus pulling everything off, and then the whole just gets really screwed as far as they can't buy knives anymore at Kohl. So that's just what I want to share about it.
Yeah, and it's kind of an odd, situation. Having lived in Australia for about 28 years, it clearly has that nanny state vibration. There's an over intellectual way of running things, and it's based on an idea of fairness and mateship, and they want to take care of each other and help each other. So it's great in some ways, but it gets out of balance. So I kind of come back to that whole idea that things are a bit out of balance. So the opportunistic, I guess I'm saying it like it is tonight, folks, but the opportunistic vibration of, okay, let's make a law. I'm going to look like I'm a great guy, and I'm going to close those loopholes. And before you know it, we can hardly move. And you're talking about a 1 in a gazillion, or 1 in 24 million, in the case of Australia, 26 million, the population, kind of an incident. And you probably have more chance of getting eaten by a shark in Australia, might be a bad example for some people, but or slipping in your bathtub, or crossing the road and getting killed, than being stabbed in the middle of a Kohl's. So, there's, are they helping us, or are they trying to make themselves look? Where are their motives? Where's the true concern? Is there true concern there? Is it looking from the bigger picture perspective? And I think also the balance of, I'd just like to say that this is something that strikes me a lot when young people get involved in, these situations. It's not good news for anybody. It's not good news for the victim. It's not, quote, good news for that person that did it. It's not good news for the parents. I mean, I feel bad for everybody all around, or I'm empathetic. That's probably the best way to put it. But there's, when I start looking things from a spiritual perspective, then I err on the side of give opportunity so that souls can learn and grow. And anyway, so that's my perspective. I prefer it. That's what I like. And I think those are my final thoughts on that particular subject.
Okay, well, next we're going to have a very inspiring story about someone who's not doing too well, Pope Francis. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. When you arrived back, you were enthusiastic to be here. If you've lost some of that enthusiasm, there's a way to reawaken it. It's by embracing a bigger spiritual picture of your life as a soul and igniting the feeling of freedom within. If you're ready and needing some more enthusiastic mojo for yourself, then follow the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College, and get ready to start feeling more clarity, hope, and freedom within.
Now we're back. Our next story is going to be about Pope Francis, and he's been having a few health issues of late. And lately, he just had a little fall and he kind of bruised his arm and so forth. But I thought this was an interesting story because he is the head of the church, of the Catholic Church. He chose the name Francis based on Francis of Assisi, who is I enjoy a lot of the story of Francis of Assisi, and just seeing a little bit of what's happening there with the church and with him, since he's the figurehead of that organization. So I thought this would be a good story to just regroup upon as far as energy goes and how it affects so many people. And so, Teresa, you have any thoughts on this story?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I am obviously not a very religious person and never have been this lifetime, but I do honor figureheads, and I honor, people that are put up front as far as for, maybe leading a group of people, and especially energetically. And what came up for me when I was tuning into this story and is some of the people that I've followed in the past, and also some people that I've considered I maybe put up like on a guru or a mentor kind of pedestal in my life, and how the energy of working with them and gathering insights for myself and really getting maybe some of the some things that I needed to, some refinements for myself, or some ways that I need to kind of move forward in gathering some momentum from what they've have going on for themselves. But then whenever things have turned a little bit and they've left my life, so saying like at some point Pope Francis is going to leave this life, and so those that follow him, those that are inspired by him, are going to be like, okay, so they're going to feel that, what next? What do I do? And that's where I've been at different times in my life when I've disconnected with other people that I've really put out there, that is, as far as I'm going to just say guru, honestly, there were three main teachers in my existence this lifetime that I really followed really closely. And I also realized that following someone that closely, that I put so much emphasis on what they said and what their energy was versus my own. So that's my spiritual perspective, is really honoring my own energy. Like if I was a Catholic and he was getting ready to go, I'd be, of course I would obviously mourn a bit, but I'd be like, okay, so what did I learn from Pope Francis's life? What did I gain from him being the head of my church right now? And that's how I look back at the people that I've worked with, is I say, okay, so what did I gain out of that situation, even though they're no longer here, they're no longer in my life. And so that really helps me understand where I'm at and what I gained from the situation. And so that's what came up for me when this story came forward.
Yeah, and it sounds like to me that by asking those questions, I regroup what I got out of that opportunity or that positive quality that that person had, that I was here to sort of learn a bit more about. And really the whole key is how do I find that positive quality within myself? How do I nurture that? Because if I can spot it, I got it. One of the things I'd like to share is that it's something that I've noticed over the years, is that whoever's in charge, there is a spiritual energy, especially leading a number of people, that flows through that person, and we all pick up on it. Now, there's a spiritual perspective. So it's interesting that that person is kind of waning, because as I think Tiger's going to share about this too, is it shows that some of the backing's moving on, or he's gotten his 50% out of that opportunity as well. So, the best leaders help us find our own answers, and they stimulate something in ourselves. That's what I was trying to remember when I looked at my notes. They stimulate something in ourselves to bring out that, that golden quality that they have. And I noticed that there's an expectation, particularly in dogmatic circles, that somehow that person who's a leader is supposed to be perfect in every other aspect. Now, of course, as a soul, we're already perfect, but in terms of maybe perfect behavior, or that they always behave appropriately in every situation, well, they have their areas where they're here to learn and grow. And being Pope or being president or being the CEO of a major corporation is just another opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn and grow, work with the energy. And it is amazing, is when I've been in those leadership positions, and And some of us who've been involved in spiritual work, I mean, when you get that spiritual backing, it's magic. It's doors open, and you magnetize people to you at the right time, and answers come, and it's great. And, Pope Francis isn't really like this, but, many of our political leaders and sometimes our business leaders get intoxicated with that flow of energy. Well, there is something there. It's not just a brain phenomena. There's an actual spiritual energy. And when that energy is flowing, it almost feels like you could do no wrong and everything you say is amazing, and that kind of thing. And people react that way, and so on and so forth. So I guess in summary, I'd just like to say what strikes me is let him go, regroup it, like Teresa suggested. What are the qualities that I admire or I would like to develop more in myself? And I think with Pope Francis, he has a humble, caring, loving quality that is probably, even if I didn't agree with him politically, that energy of that true concern that he has for every level of society is that humble feeling that, we needed some more of. And I'm getting chills as I share that. He was the man of the hour for however how many years he was here. So,
How many hours?
Yeah, lots of hours.
Yeah. Pope Francis took the name from Francis of Assisi. If you don't know that story, it's a neat little story, and there's some pretty powerful prayers that come from that side of things. It's a lot based on peace and an inner power to do things. Let me not be to understand so much as I can understand, and all this kind of thing, and the peace within. So it's a really powerful thing. And then the story himself of Francis is a really amazing one. He was actually a crusader in the beginning, and then he came home because he had to. He got sick, and then he had this vision, and that's when he went in and did all this thing. And the other part of it is one of the parts of Francis of Assisi's story is that at a certain point he took all his clothes off in the middle of the square, and he folded them up and handed them to his parents, right, after coming out of church, and to signify that I'm giving you everything back that belongs to you, and I'm going to go on my own way. And as the story goes, he's walking through the town naked, and somebody throws some burlap over him, to kind of like, hey, cover yourself, mate, kind of thing. And he wears this burlap now all the time. I tell that because it's, he took that name because it is this humble situation that he sought to go. And so I was really inspired by that. He is the figurehead. So energetically, things flow down like water. So if there's people that you're responsible for, you're working with in a business, or you're in a family and you're kind of the head of that, one way or another, then the energy is going to flow through you, and that affects people. And so as Pope Francis starts having troubles, that can affect downline, right? There's a tremendous system that the Catholic system is vast, and it has a lot of checks and balances. So it's not going anywhere. But energetically, I have to know when to move in and when to move out. Ultimately, what is my responsibility? What is my opportunity, right? So am I here, which is kind of what I was getting from you, Teresa, is like, am I here just for myself, or am I here to be of service, right? I get my own needs met. Take care of myself by being of service, right? If it's just me and my stuff alone, well, I can do that, and there's a small group that I can interact with. But if I'm going to here to be of service to all the people I've come to work with, then that message has to be clear, right? Is it the man or the message? Is it the woman or the message? And this is one of those cases for me where it's the message that's important. And so as things shift there's an energy where something around him is starting to get rigid, right? It's not as flexible as it was, right? It's true. He's older. He's 88. So, some of that is natural, but it's also being aware that I myself need to stay nimble. I need to keep growing. I need to keep learning, right? I need to adapt. And if I don't, then it's going to get ultra reflected into my body, right? I'm not going to be able to heal as fast. Little things can trip me up, things like that. So the more flexible I am to learn and grow and fulfill what I've come to do, right? Be firm with what I've come to do, but be flexible in how I can achieve it. And that way I don't get stuck in any one thing. And I know when to move in and I know when to move out of my opportunities. When is the energy high for me? And if the energy starts waning, I need to start making a decision, not for necessarily other people per se, for my own energy and my own continuity. What is the next high energy for me, right? And there'll be people there to back me with that. If I just stay, then what happens is I start pulling everything down with me because it doesn't fit 100% anymore. Now, I'm not suggesting that, Francis should run away right now, Pope Francis, but it is just something to be aware of. He is that figurehead for a lot of people. And whether we're a part of that or not, we are indirectly affected by it. So it is just important, I think, this in conclusion, is just that making sure that I'm solid with what I've come to do, know what my opportunities are, your opportunities, and be able to move in and out of those opportunities as the time is right. Find my timing, make some mistakes, grow from those mistakes, not just learn it, but also grow. So I know when to move in and out. And then finally, really be sensitive to, it's not so much what I do, but how I do it. So I need to be firm in myself about what I've come to do, that nobody touches that one way or another. I'm going to go do it. But how I do it, the method that I do it, that starts becoming important so that I can be flexible. I know how to move. I can be relaxed. So that's the big picture for me. In just a moment, we're going to come back to our next story in just a moment.
When you synchronize time and trust to get your own answers, it makes playing the game of life a whole lot easier. Part of the game here is about unfolding your inner wisdom, those intuitive gifts that support you every day. Being able to tune into those messages when they show up through the 4 unique avenues is a game changer. These avenues are the ability to just know things, see with your inner vision, hear that small still voice within, and feel from those gut instincts. We all have these abilities. If you're interested in finding out more about how you can unfold them to support your unique journey, you're going to love our monthly masterclasses called Intuition Now. Check out the link below for the date and timing of the next set of classes. And get ready to be in the right timing to trust your inner wisdom. See you soon. Okay, well, we're back, and I am excited to share a little bit about TikTok today. So that was the story that I was inspired. TikTok. Not quite like that, Tom.
Clocks? Is this about clocks? Or?
But this story inspired me. It's basically around, well, TikTok has a huge influence with over 170 million Americans a month use it. I was just watching something recently where there's businesses, personal, people have entrepreneurs. There's all kinds of people using TikTok. So there's also been a big thing recently about the Chinese government retrieving information off of TikTok since the Chinese own TikTok at the current moment. And there's been some censorship that's happened on the platform. And also with the current administration, Biden was going to be banning TikTok, but he's actually not. He's actually passing the baton to Trump to see what he does with it. So that's a story I'm going to open up with. And Tom, you want to share a little bit what comes to you about that?
Yes. Well, I'm not for people getting access to my data, but the first thoughts I have is I have free will. And I suppose as long as somebody makes that choice to be involved with this particular platform and they like the features and so forth, this is where I love that kind of the libertarian type of freedom where I don't know that it's the government's job to protect me from my own learning experiences. And frankly, I wouldn't have any data that was of any interest to anybody else, most likely, you know. So there could be some different rules for, you know, another solution is for different people. So, you know, forewarned is forearmed, and being aware. Now, I think the media and maybe other folks have, you know, are letting us know, you know, what we get into and it's involved with TikTok. But I do know many people use it. I know my son uses it, and you know, it seems to be a great platform that I've actually I kind of felt myself that I'd go ahead and work with it. You know, so uh, that's how I feel about it. I like, you know, a bit of oversight. I guess I always come back to balance. This has been my theme for the last, you know, few weeks, is a balance between my true feelings and my intellectual nature, a balance between my incentive and my organization. And even in the earlier story that I talked about, you know, when I complain about a nanny state kind of vibration, I'm just saying it's a little over organized for maybe what my true feelings, you know, tell me. So let me have my learning experiences, you know, unless there's some, you know, grave danger, and warn folks. But I prefer freedom, freedom of experience, freedom of expression, and freedom to make my own mistakes. I love this. There's a Don Williams song that I play in the country band that I'm in, and it says, I appreciate your well thought out advice, but I can make my own mistakes just fine. Who'd like to go next?
All right. This has been an evolving story. Of late, you know, the American Congress has, you know, put through the ban for that, and just recently the highest court in the United States supported that ban. It went all the way up to the high court, or what we call the Supreme Court in America. And so there is enough stirring with the ownership of of a different country, in this case China, being the parent company of TikTok, that this has made its way all the way up to this point, right? So there's something going on there. The thing I want to talk about is personal, business, and social. I think that's what stands out to me in the programs that we work with in the college. One of the concepts we talk about is personal, business, and social, and it's a very old concept. We've titled it personal, business, social, but it's been around for thousands of years. And the Asians used to say, you know, you got to have 8 hours of work or toil, 8 hours of the arts of some kind, and 8 hours of rest or meditation. And they would talk about it in this way. And so you got to have this 3 parts, you know, to have a more or less balanced life, in generally speaking. And so we've kind of refined that to talk about personal, business, and social. To me, the TikTok really exemplifies the social part of it. I mean, we have a lot of social media, and you're watching this through social media. But TikTok, at least in the United States, really, it's, you know, it's social. It's almost anything goes. I guess it's not OnlyFans or something like that, but it's, you know, it's up there as far as social, and the young people really enjoy it. It's amazing the amount of attention and things that go on there. But there's something a little bit about your point, Tom, is that when things start going a little bit off, when it starts getting too much in one direction, there's something that moves in to start to correct that, right? So if in my life I get too social, then pretty soon I'm either going to get moved or forced to make sure that making sure I'm coming back to my business and my personal, so that it starts balancing out. And to me, that's part of this. There's the other part of, is China taking the data and doing something with it, and mining it and working it? I mean, it's possible. The main thing for me just really has to do with am I in business with what I've come to do? Doesn't mean I have to be in business 24 hours a day, but am I thinking of my life as business, right? Well, there's something about business that has a tendency to clean out problems, right? If you had a business of something and there was a disbalance in it, you would move in to address something quickly, right? It's, hey, we got to do something about this. It's black and white. If I keep my life too social, too flippy floppy, one way or another, then what happens is that's that thing I was talking about earlier in the this cast, is that something will move in on me, right? And if I don't have those clear boundaries, I don't have that business clear. So to me, the energy has to do with it's very social, it's designed for that, and that's good. But there's something about it that is infringing on other areas. When people get into social too much, what happens is they lose the sense of themselves and they lose their boundaries. And if that energy is now coming from the top, where they're trying to penetrate into other things, and the social is the method, it's going to get pushback. So if in the end, it's if someone else, the parent company moves off and another one comes in, another one owns it, then TikTok will remain. And if not, then what'll probably happen is energy will migrate to something else, right? Because that social energy isn't just going to go away. But the feeling of making sure that I have a balance with all that personal, business, and social is essential. And also within that, not to create too many rules and regulations that stifle me to express myself, right? I guess my wrap up of this particular subject is, this is similar to what we had before in a different podcast, newscast, is there is a trend moving through, and we've been reporting that for the last several news cycles here for us. And that trend for me has to do with that restoration of balance, like bringing things back. And that's, for those into numerology, the number 5 is pictured by a star, right? 5-point star. And that energy is all about expansion, right? If you just look at the star, it's all about expansion, expand, expand. And we've been writing that for many years now, that energy of just push, expand, push the boundaries, right? But at some point within that, there has to be balance. There has to be, wait a minute, let's make sure things are solid here. And that's why our sheriff, the person who enforces the law in the old days, used to have a 5-pointed star, because it wasn't just about expansion. It was also about making sure there was clear boundaries. And so I could expand, but I also didn't push too much, right? I didn't hurt other people in the process. And so to me, that energy of expansion now needs to be balanced. And that's what we're going to see one way or another, whether the platform has to be divested somehow and something else comes in, or something else shifts. Whatever it is, there's going to be a balance. And so that's me.
That's you. And so what really caught my eye about this TikTok ban is that for myself, I've never been guided to use TikTok. I do Facebook. And so the TikTok, I've always thought about, like you're saying, social. Like I've always noticed it's been people, I kind of say playing around. But again, I've just recently heard that a lot of people use it for business. So, I don't know much about it. But all I know is that it feels to me, and I'm going to go to the balance, what you're talking about, is a balance of thought and feeling. So really accessing, what does that social media platform feel to me? And that's how I've always worked with it. So for me, it doesn't feel like an area that I want to really move into, because I'm working with other areas. And also the perspective of truths are being unearthed. So a lot of things right now in this time frame that we're in, there's a lot of things that have been hidden from people. And so things are being unearthed. So as, it mentions about the Chinese government, retrieving information. Well, like Tiger saying, is that truth or not? And how is that for yourself? So, and all these things that are coming up for, for really review, honestly, for where we're at is in our existence. How is that, working for me? Is it something that I want to be involved in? Is there truth in there that, because yeah, it could be that Chinese are gaining insight, information and insights from, from people on TikTok. Just being that there's 170 million Americans a month on it, that, think about how many people on the world. There's millions of people on it. But really coming back to, what does it feel? What's the feeling behind this social media platform? And again, for myself, it didn't feel like a place that I needed to be on. But for yourself, if you're someone that's a big TikToker, and it may be banned, it may be dismantled. So what does that feel like? And how are you going to bring that into balance for yourself as you move forward into, okay, so what's next? And I also look at it like, in the reveal, or in the unearthing of where things are at this moment in time, which is so expansive. How are you going to move forward with what happens, and being okay with yourself when that, maybe the dismantling happens, and maybe it's no longer going to be, but being okay with, the feeling I have is I'm okay because I've got my backing from my spiritual helpers. I've got my own momentum. I've got my own purpose, and I can figure out what's the next step after something like this may get banned. So that's what I just want to share about that. So how interesting was that? TikTok.
Well, I think it's a great example of how something that Tiger stimulated in me, as he shared, and yourself, is that how social can be used against me if I'm not aware. So it's thank you for bringing up that story, Teresa.
Well, it's interesting because before we started this whole doing our discerning news, I was really inspired to bring forth positive stories, or stories that are very inspirational. So when I woke up this morning, we were, all getting together, and I started getting a lot of inspiration from spirit. That's honestly the time of day that I get the most downloads and the most information. So the inspiration that I received for the next story that I'm going to share is about, where are there on places and people on the planet that are bringing forth light, that are bringing forth, helping shift the energy for other people, even though they may be in places or situations that we go, really, that's happening there? So I did a little research, and I found this amazing story about this 11-year-old Texan boy whose name is actually, let's see, his name is Shayden Walker. So Shayden Walker lives in this neighborhood, and what he did is he went to a neighbor that he likes, and he went up to him, and he basically started asking him, I'm looking for friends. I'm looking for someone to, play with or be with. And there was a beautiful video that this neighbor actually was making while this young boy was asking him about, hey, is there any friends here? And this video, ironically enough, back to TikTok, went viral. So over 70 million people watched this young, beautiful boy ask about, I want to have some friends. So to me, when I saw that, it was so inspirational. I really wanted to bring it forth and just kind of gain some, what's your perspective on that, Tom and Tiger, for, where especially young kids these days. And in this video, the young boy talks about being bullied, because the guy said, hey, there's other kids out there. He says, well, I've been to their homes, but they're bullies to me. So it's really finding, there's obviously a big heart in this young child. And it was such an inspiration from when I found it. So what do you think about that story, Tom?
Well, I love uplifting stories, and I'm really glad that you had that inspiration, because often I've thought over the years, that there's a lot more good news stories than we're ever exposed to. But, psychologically, we react to fear and people get our attention. Unfortunately, that's a true thing. And from a psychological brain of evolution of the physical body perspective, I found it very heartwarming. And we had a little bit of a preview of what Tiger's going to share. So I think rather than me waffling on about it, I'll turn it over to Tiger, and maybe I can make a comment after that.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is this little segment of the inspirational story. I think we're going to be doing this more often now at the end of each newscast, podcast thing. Yeah, what really stood out to me was this young man, 11 years old. I think he has is a little bit some learning issues for himself, but he's mostly feeling, right. He doesn't have much intellect in contrast to other people his age. So there's a lot of feeling there, right? And when you see the video, if you see the video, it's basically this little door cam of where this young man rocked up to one of the neighbors in his neighborhood and just, solicited friendship, right? Hey, do you know of anybody I can be friends with? I really need friends bad. I mean, this was his communication to the neighbor, and the guy says, well, this down the street there, there's two boys or two kids over there. And he goes, yeah, I know them. They bully me. And the guy kind of, oh, okay, well, and then the guy actually brings up that he's got this, young child, 2-year old, and the boy says, wow, I would just love to be there and help with that, and meaning that he wants friendship with that person who answered the door, right? Like he was willing to work with that 2-year old just because he wanted the friendship with somebody, right? And so the thing that stood out to me from this story is just the organization it takes to go out and do something, right? Sometimes I can try to be perfect or over organized to go do something, and I forget that once I have a feeling or a need for something, a desire that kicks in, I'm already partially organized, right? I've got a feeling and I've identified it. That's being organized, right? And so I don't need to have some big deal to be perfect to go out and take the first step to move forward. And this young man, 11 years old, doesn't have a bunch of intellectual data and suppression on him, right? Because that's part of his makeup, right? He's not in that same league as other young people his age, but he has a mountain of feeling, right? To just organize himself to go and do something, unafraid to go knock on doors. Hey, would you be my friend? That's amazing. And for me, it's just great. What am I doing? Like I talk to people all the time, but it's like, why am I not doing it every time I'm moved? Sometimes I'm in my stuff and I'm stuck in my world, or I'm dealing with the paperwork, or, whatever it is. And some of that I need to do, but I need to realize how much I already am organized because of my feelings. And the willingness, all I have to do is that the inspiration is there, the need is there, I'm already partially organized. All I need to do is take the steps. And, a great leader that came before me used to say, Tiger, you only need to be one step ahead in order to help somebody with the step. And that what he was trying to say to me was, don't try to analyze and dissect your way to success. Just take the first step. Learn from that step. Take the next step. Learn from that one, grow from that one, take the next step. And before you know it, I'm walking, and my walking turns into jogging, and my jogging turns into running, and my running turns into flying. It's this progression if I'm just honor what is already organized in my heart. We were talking earlier about Pope Francis, the Christians have this thing is that what did God put in my heart? What did God put in your heart? That's, to me, that's saying something similar, that spiritually, what am I organized for, right? What is inside me that I need to do? And those things may alter as I grow and evolve. But for me, this inspirational story just really has to do with the already organized feeling, the feeling that's already organized inside me. And this young man is just a beautiful picture of that. And to show that I don't need some fancy pedigree, some doctorate to go be successful. I just need to follow my instincts, follow my feelings, and take the steps. Will I make some mistakes? You betcha. But if I'm willing to keep moving forward, they will become my asset and not a liability. And before you know that, boom, I'll be so successful, right? And do what I've come to do. So those are the things that stand out to me to this great story.
Yeah, and I guess the lesson that I have from this story too is keeping it simple,
Mm,
and also in the childlike aspect
right.
of what we sometimes move out of as we get older. So being able to really see this video, and we'll put this video link in the show notes, so you can definitely check it out if you'd like to. But the perspective from a child's view is just beautiful because, again, like Tiger was saying, I mean, it was just, he just was moved to like, I need to find some friends. And I mean, like these things that we think too much about versus like, hey, just move with it, just go with it. And also, what comes to me too is the fact that he had spiritual backing,
Mm,
which a lot of us, until we get to a certain age, we don't really understand about spiritual backing, or the fact that, we came in with a team of beautiful guides to guide us every moment that we're here. But that spiritual backing, he's like, you know what? From my heart, I need some friends. And what did he do? He got the spiritual backing to go to the right home, and, the right gentleman to open the door. And in the article, there's also a picture of them embracing.
right.
So it's such a loving example of following through with your heart's desires will also bring forth amazing moments in life that you have no idea, but really following through.
It reminds me that I just had this flashback to when I was a child, when I was, say, 4-ish years old or 5 years old. And, we didn't think twice about going up to a neighbor's door. Hey, you got any kids to play with here? And there was a point, where I got trained out of that, probably 11, 12, 13, or, when I became cool. And that intellectual, the maze of the environment, we call it the maze, kind of kicked in. And also as a young child, I believed I had a unseen helper, and I had a name for it. And I used to ask my mom to help me find him occasionally. And I recognized that that's one of my first spiritual helpers. So, I'm sure many listeners can relate to, being that young and having all that spiritual feeling just naturally, but somehow being programmed out of us. Well, you don't really have an unseen helper, do you, Tom? Oh, I don't? And, so on and so forth. So, anyway, wow, what a great lineup of stories today. What a
Absolutely.
pleasure
Great
to be.
teamwork.
And but what a great idea to end on a positive note, remind us of who we really are. And, we have some tools and techniques we can offer. You see the show notes. You probably saw the commercial already where we, share about some free videos at the Wayshores College and a little booklet so that you can start to get introduced to some of the ideas that we're sharing and really just realize who you really are and that there's hope. You're going to have some learning experiences, but you got a great team of spirits behind you. And, look at things more from that spiritual perspective.
Well said. Until our next taping. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.